while Felicia's getting situated, if anyone has events that are coming up that they'd like to share with everybody, I know Lee as well as Steve Lee have different events that are coming up. You want to tell everyone about them?
Yeah. You want me to go first? So I got hoops over here. We did one over here at Bound Park for the child that got attacked by other kids. So I think it was 13-year-old. And we did a hoops over here in Bound Park where the kids could play together and learn how to, bridge communities. We're doing the second one on May 29th in Columbus Park. We wanted to do one in, every borough. Let me see if I can share the flyer in the chat. That's the flyer in the chat. It's at Columbus Park. It's Saturday, 12 to 4. We will also have self-defense classes from Cornerstone Thai Boxing. And, I don't know if we're going to be giving out alarms that day, too. But we got a couple of events going on during that day. So,
Nice. Go
online, register your kids, play some basketball and have some fun. I'm teaching the tactical flashlight portion of that event. And, should be good.
Sounds wonderful. Thank you, Steve.
Yeah.
Lee, would you like to tell us about your event?
Hi, I would love to. So we are going to have on May 30th, Sunday, First Asian Podcast Festival, and I'll put the link in the chat. We are firming up our show lineup, but it's pay as you wish, and so we'd love to have you. And so I would advise registering and then being on the email list to get the updates for all of the shows that we'll have. We are putting it together, and we hope to introduce, showcase, and highlight the work of other AAPIers in the podcasting space and getting their messages out, and hopefully helping y'all find some new shows to listen to. And I cannot wait for Felicia Lynn tonight.
Nice. And just so everybody knows, Lee is part of the Asian American Podcasters Association. So they've got a very, very lengthy listing of different Asian American Pacific Islander podcasts that are out there content-wise. So, when they have their event later this month, you'll be able to see just a small cross-section of some of the things that they've got available, but it's pretty extensive from what I've been hearing. Thank you, Lee.
Okay, everybody. Thank you very much, Chris, for holding down the fort. I apologize. We are having a few technical issues here with my camera and my video camera, and I actually had to switch to another computer. But without further ado, let's get started. I'm Felicia Lin, the host of the Talking Taiwan podcast, which has been around since 2013. And I'm really excited to bring this panel discussion and Q&A on the topic of what to do if you're the target of Asian hate, which has been organized in conjunction with United We Stand, the 42nd Annual Asian Pacific American Heritage Festival. I want to thank them for giving me the inspiration to organize and run this event. And I want to thank all of my panelists. I'm not going to go into their bios because that's all on the invitation. You should be familiar with that. The Asian Pacific American Festival is running for the entire month of May, and I highly encourage you to go over there and check out the over 100 organizations represented there, and there's a lot more events happening throughout the end of the month. For those who don't know, Talking Taiwan is a weekly podcast about the interesting people and stories connected to Taiwan and Taiwan's global community. A few of our panelists today have actually been on the podcast, so I invite you to visit our website, which is talkingtaiwan.com, to check out some of our past episodes. And in fact, we just launched our beautiful new website today, so it's a really important day for us. A few housekeeping notes before we get started. This event will be recorded, so just please be aware of that. And we have intentions to plan to turn it into a future podcast episode. During the Q&A, first we're going to have a brief discussion with the panelists. And during the Q&A, you're invited to raise your hand if you'd like to speak and ask a question. At that point, either Chris or I will unmute you. And we ask that you keep your comments brief and that you focus on what you have to say in the form of a question. You can also type in your question in the chat if you prefer to do that and not to speak. So I'm going to start off with a few questions to get us warmed up, but I really don't want this to be about us talking at you, but I really want it to be an opportunity for all of you to ask questions and to interact with the panelists today. I want you to know that this is a supportive environment and that we are all here to give you constructive advice and tips. So thank you again. So first of all, our panelists today are Chris Kwok, Sulen Moy, Steve Lee, and Peter Zhao. First of all, I would like to open up with having Sulen talk about what happened with her, and I think she has some very practical tips about what to do if you're actually harassed on the street, because she has a story about what happened to her there.
Great. Thanks so much, Felicia, for creating this space for this very important discussion. On February 20th, my son and I were walking to a bookstore, and we were in Soho and we were waiting to cross the street, and this white guy with like tattoos and like cuts all over his face, he was not wearing a mask, he was coming towards us, and then he swerved like right in front of me, and he was like this close to my face, and he basically started shouting, you know, fucking gooks, and you know, suck my dick, I'm gonna kill you, like all this stuff at us, just like all this hatred. And I don't think he was aware that I was with my son, and that we were related. So he was very surprised when we began like shouting at him really loudly, so loudly that everybody on all four corners stopped and looked up. And so that's when he started to run away. But like, you know, we were screaming racist, we were screaming pervert. I use the expression, yell it back to hell. That's what we did. My son and I, we both love to sing karaoke. We have very strong voices, and we just shouted. He just like went right back across the street. My sister-in-law actually made me this t-shirt, yell it back to hell. But my whole thing is, I grew up in New York City. I went to high school here. And my whole thing is, I've written 16 guidelines for the parents of Asian children, because an adoptive mothers group on Facebook reached out to me and they wanted to know how can we protect our children. And so I offer some tips at suelain.com, SUELAIN.com, where I basically tell people you have to be prepared for this moment of confrontation, harassment, or violence. A lot of times what happens is people freeze up, or, they might have mace on them or some other weapon, and they take it out and they expect it to talk for them. It's not going to talk for you. The other thing I wanted to say is that I think it's great that lawmakers are trying to change the law. There's a big difference between changing the law and enforcement of the law. So what I tell families is, that expression, dance like no one is watching, no one is looking. You've got to be ready to protect yourself like no one is coming. All right. It's great if a passerby intervenes and takes a picture, but you yourself have to be ready. And that's a hard shift for us. I'm telling people to tell their kids, this is not the time to be polite. If you feel unsafe for whatever reason, you run, you cross the street. If, for whatever reason, anybody makes you feel uncomfortable, you honor that gut feeling first. And that's because I think it's going to take months, possibly longer, for the law to catch up to what is actually happening on the streets. I'm hearing from a lot of friends who've been physically hurt and attacked. My son and I that day, we were able to ward off an attack. The guy kept going into his jacket like he was going to pull something out. He was like hovering nearby. So that's why we shouted with such force. And so my big thing to kids and to parents and to young women, right, because 3 out of 4 victims are women, is to be as unpredictable as possible. Your job here is to throw off your would-be harasser or attacker and run away to safety. If passerby, if bystanders intervene, great. If a police officer comes, I've even done things where I've been like, oh, thanks, officer. And the person turns and looks around and I'm out of there. So what I'm talking about is really a shift. You know, I'd like people to be a little bit more street smart and use a little bit more street psychology. I would say that it's really rough out there right now. It's very unpredictable. There's a lot of violence. Just last week, 2 men were following me down Canal Street near the Bowery. And this guy kept saying, I know that ass. I recognize that ass. And he just kept like closer and closer. And I had a rolling pin with me and I took it out. And there was a distinct change in the chirp, shall we say, because he could not back away fast enough. He was like, oh, I don't know her. I do not know her. I don't know her. Don't look at her. I don't know her. And they took off. But in that moment, I was very prepared and I was very ready. I don't blame people when they get attacked. I don't blame people for being harassed because a lot of it actually has to do with the person who's trying to humiliate you. And so for me, because this has been happening to me since I was a kid, since I was 12 or 13, for me, I make my voice very low and very loud. And I also take a very strong stance on the street, so that I like to think of it as my own kind of aversion therapy, and that I'm actually performing a public service every time I set one of these clowns straight. So that's not a philosophy that everyone takes. It's, you know, I have a lot of family members who are in law enforcement, and over the years, you know, would tell me things like how to get out of a headlock, you know, like just slide, make yourself as heavy as possible. If you have something like a stick or an umbrella or a cane, you know, aim for the face, aim for the private parts, and aim for the knees. And I hate to be so literal, but we are literally in a fight for our lives and our safety out there. And I don't want to see anyone get hurt. So that day, what happened to my son and me, we didn't get hurt that day, but we very easily could have. I'm of the opinion that you should come out swinging if you are prepared to do so. I don't want to give anyone a reason to come back and to attack more people, but I totally understand if people are taken off guard and they feel uncomfortable about it. Like I said, you know, I started off as a very scared, big-eyed, you know, 13-year-old walking down the street and having these men saying horrible things to me about my race, about what they'd like me to do for them, and all this stuff. And so that's why, you know, when I encounter one of these creeps, part of my thing is I don't want them to do that to anyone else. I don't want them to do that to anyone's daughter or wife or girlfriend or mother or aunt or grandmother. So that's pretty much the tact I take and that I recommend. You know, safety first, and be prepared to discuss these hard topics with your kids about how they can keep themselves safe. You know, sometimes some kids, I'll say, just pretend you don't speak English and go, you know, and just walk away. Sometimes that works. I've sung. My son has spoken, you know, different accents from British to Southern. And these are all things that have helped protect us and have helped protect other people too. So I don't know if anybody has any questions or comments. I don't know, Felicia. But okay. Things have not gotten better since the end of February. I feel like they're getting worse, for sure. Right.
Well, thank you very much, Sulaine, for sharing those practical tips. I think there's things for people to do, whether or not you're someone that's vocal or not. As Sulaine said, if you could even just pretend to not understand the person, that you don't understand English. But I was also wondering, like, if somebody encounters a situation like this, where should they report something like this? Like, Steve or Chris, do you have any comments about where to report this? Because I believe Sulaine reported it to the, was it the NYPD Asian Hate Task Force?
Hate Crimes Hotline. I left a message there. When we first went online, the first resource we found was like, you know, there were like videos from the mayor's wife. You had to scroll all the way to the bottom to find that you had to call 911 or 311. Right now, the definition of a hate crime is if something violent happened to you and was accompanied by hate speech or something in writing. We really did not want to give the guy that opportunity. So, sometimes I feel funny because they're like, well, what happened to you? It's not what happened to me. It's what almost happened to us.
Right. So, Steve or Chris, do you have any comments about where is the best place to report this? Because I don't think Celine got confirmation of whether or not her report was received. Like, at the very least, I think if this happens to someone, they may want to make sure that's reported somewhere for statistical reporting purposes to know that it's going on the record.
Yeah, I also reported to 2 AAPI hate crimes surveys.
So you could report it to the NYPD, of course. Call 911. Somebody come by and make a report. If you don't feel comfortable calling the police, then you could also report it to the Attorney General's office. I put the link in the chat. They have a hotline. You can reach out to them. There's certain things when you report a hate crime, you have to be very detailed why you think it's a hate crime, right? In order for it to be a hate crime, it has to be some kind of discrimination, right? So they have to call you a chink or something like that, or make you feel like you got attacked because of the way you look or who you are, right? And if you just say, oh, this person attacked me and harassed me, that's not a hate crime, unfortunately, right? Because under the law, it's just harassment. But if you said, hey, this guy called me a chink, or any other derogatory terms, racist slurs, then it becomes a hate crime.
Even if he hasn't physically touched me, he's come very close to my face but has not touched me.
That's still harassment.
And if they do so on the basis of your national origin, race, or color, that's aggravated harassment.
Right.
And that is
arrestable offense.
Something
that becomes a misdemeanor, and that's a arrestable offense. Also, if the person is in your face and you're in legit fear of your life, or you feel like you're in danger, that's also a misdemeanor offense. That's also aggravated harassment. So it's all about articulation and how you describe it. If you feel like, oh, I didn't mention it because, I didn't think it was important, that's not true. Mention every detail. It's all important. If they called you whatever slur, if they looked at you before, if they followed you down the block, or if this is not the first time you saw the person, mention all that. All those details are very important because it builds the crime up to the point.
I also wrote a very detailed email as well when I didn't get a call back. I've also had friends who've actually had things thrown at them and were hurt and tried to file a report and never heard back. Had to check back with the precinct multiple times.
Right.
Those are all issues that really we've had to deal with as a community.
Yeah.
Because yeah.
Sorry. So first, I have to say I am a police officer, but right now I am not speaking as a representative of NYPD. I'm speaking as a private citizen because I feel like it's all public concern. For some reason, I have to say that in every podcast now. One of the big problems that we do have is what we like to call, as police officers, shit canning, right? So they take the report, they downgrade it, they don't follow up on it, they just close it out. One, because the statistic-wise, they don't want the crime rate to go up, supposedly, right? And if there's a large amount of Asian hate, then they have to, come up with resources to address it, right? When they said, oh, there's only 29 incidents this year or whatever, all those numbers are false because we all see it, that it's definitely more than 29 incidents that have been happening since the beginning of the year. And they've just been miscategorized. The reports have been downgraded, and that's a political ploy. And that's why I say, if you don't feel comfortable calling the NYPD, call the Attorney General's office. I think they make a bigger and also get your local politician to push it. You should definitely keep following up. If they don't want to give you an update of the status or whatever, just keep calling. keep calling. And when they know that you're not going away, then they'll be like, all right, you know what? Let me just take care of this because this person's not going away.
Is there a statute of limitations? Like this happened to us on February 20th. So what's my end date for reporting this incident?
Chris is a lawyer, so he might know it, but I think it's 1 year.
Okay.
This question, I don't have an answer, unfortunately, because sorry. But I'll tell you that, Suling, given what you described, it's difficult because if it happened on the street and there's no video of it, and the police were not like a block or two.
I did have 2 witnesses.
Oh, okay. Were they willing to come back?
Yeah.
Because once you report it afterwards, I think the chances of those cops spending a great deal of expense and time without any serious physical injury is very, very small. Do you know what I mean? Sort of like with the video of it, with people suffering injury, it being on the news, that's going to sort of engender a really strong police response, right? And I would also say that don't worry, is this a hate crime? How do I report it? Just when you talk to the cops, just tell them what happened. Tell them what happened, tell them all the details like you told us.
I felt very threatened because he was so close to my face and he wasn't wearing a mask. And I thought this guy could make me sick, right?
Along with the other things that he said to you, that was aggravated harassment. That could have been, I think, theoretically charged with that hate crime element there.
Yeah, and also menacing.
Right. And that's something that cops generally on the beat have not, up until recently, been really well aware of. And they would be like, "Oh, I didn't see it. Sorry." But if you have been selected on the basis of your race, color, and national origin, it becomes aggravated harassment. It becomes something that is arrestable offense, as Stephen said in the beginning. So.
And do you recommend, Stephen, that people use these words, aggravated harassment?
Yeah, absolutely. But you have to know what is aggravated harassment, right? So, a lot of times when I was patrolling, people would be like, "Oh, but that's a robbery." No, it's not robbery. It's just grand larceny, right? There's a big difference because grand larceny doesn't have any injuries or force involved, and robbery does, right? Harassment, like somebody comes up to you and just slaps you and walks away, and the cops ask you, "Are you in pain? Are you injured?" And you go, "No, I'm okay." Then it becomes just regular harassment, and it's not arrestable. It's it's a summons, and the cop has to witness it in order to give the summons. But if you say, "Oh, my face still hurts," then it becomes assault, which is arrestable. You understand? So don't when it comes to making a report, don't undermine anything, right? Meaning don't be like, "Oh, no, I'm okay. There's no injuries. No, I don't want to go to the hospital." No. Look, if you have an injury, something hurts, say it. Yeah, my cheek is still sore, or I was really threatened. I felt like, he was going to kill me or something, like something was going to happen, like he was going to harm me, my child. All those words mean something because that builds up to menacing.
Well,
right?
he said, "I'm going to fucking kill you." So
yeah, so that's aggravated harassment and menacing, which is two offenses. Right. So that becomes 2 offenses. But if you just go up to them like, "Oh, this guy was cursing at me and, getting all up in my face," that's it. That's harassment. So it's all about how you describe what the incident was. And you have to give details, a lot of details. And, then they'll take it properly. You can also report it to the NYPD and report it to the Attorney General's office, to both places, just in case. Also, you could ask for the community affairs officer or the NCO, which is the neighborhood coordinating officer, and they will follow up for you also because that's their job. That's their role.
Does it matter which precinct I go to? Because 5 is on Elizabeth. This happened in Soho at the corner of Prince and Mott.
Absolutely not. So one of the rules in NYPD, which is a big misconception, and a lot of times, I don't want to say all cops, right? But a lot of cops say, "Oh no, it didn't happen here. You have to go to where it happened." That's absolutely not true. One of the main rules in NYPD is to refer the complaint, not the complainant. So if it happened in Chinatown and you live in Harlem, you could absolutely call 911 or walk into your local precinct in Harlem and they have to take the report for you. That's one of our rules. They have to take the report for you, and they will forward the complaint report over to the 5th precinct where it happened, and their detectives will investigate and figure things out. The politics of why that happened, I'm not going to go into it. It's just
no. I mean, we can't. I mean, that's not the purpose. But I have a lot of friends who, after they hear what happened to us, they come forward and they say, I was slapped, I was spit on. Like, what would that kind of crime be called? Because to me, that crosses a line.
Right. Like I said, if they were slapped and they had pain, then it's assault. If they were slapped and they're not in pain, then it's harassment. If they were spit on and spat on and they don't have no pain, that's unfortunately a harassment. But if they were aggressively doing it, then it quite possibly can be borderline aggravated harassment.
Okay, thank you, Stephen.
Okay. Thank you for that clarification. I would like to invite our panelist, Peter, because I think it's good to kind of talk about some of our panelists' experiences so that we can have that as a framework for discussion, and then we can open it to the audience if they have any specific questions that either come from their own personal experience or something that they're hearing tonight. So, Peter, could you share the incident that happened with your wife?
Sorry, I had to instruct my 3-year-old and 7-year-old to be very quiet. I told my son, my 7-year-old, he's aware of racism. My wife and I have been talking to him about racism. So as a matter of fact, I told him, Daddy's going to be talking about racism and to the world today. So please give me an hour of my time. Just keep it quiet, So thank you, Felicia. Thank you for introducing me. Hi, everyone. I'm Peter. I'm a father. I'm a husband. I've been a New Yorker for the past 30 years. I'm an immigrant from China. And before I start, just want to let you know, in between my talking, you will see me making a lot of facial movements. You'll see me making noises like this. As you can see from the background, also my shirt. I'm representing this month. It's not just API Heritage Month. It's also Taiwanese Heritage Month. It's also Mental Health Awareness Month. It's also Tourette Syndrome Awareness Month. So I have Tourette's. It's a semi-neurological disorder associated with tics. We also come with a whole slew of behavioral health problems like ADHD, OCD, and a lot of kids get it. I've been having this for 30 years. I took medication. Now I'm off mat. I'm a Tourette advocate, and this is the reason why you see these colors and all this stuff look all matching. So I'm here not to talk about Tourette's. I'm here to talk about my wife's incident. My wife, she's not she's not extroverted like myself. So she doesn't like to speak on TV. As a matter of fact, when she had her incident, we had a recruiter coming to us wanting to do an interview. I have no problem doing 1,000 interviews, but my wife have a lot of problem doing any interviews. So this story happened last year. This happened in January of 2020. This is when COVID-19 hasn't yet arrived in America, but there's a lot of talk already going on. There's a lot of stuff happening on news, and at the time, the presidential administration is already tweeting about China this and China that. So plus there was already 4 years of trade war, and things have changed a lot since 2016. So being said, New York City, as parents, we all know, rush hour, dropping off your kids and picking up your kids, it's very, very hectic. So in Flushing, I'm trying to drop my wife, drop my kid in the morning. All right, do it. So that morning she was dropping off my kid, and she was going to be on her way out to her work. And it was, one of those days where just bus and cars all trying to get through. People not just double park, they triple park, right? And by the time you drop off the kids and you're trying to get back in lane and drive, there's just tons of traffic. It's really crazy. So she just dropped off my kid and she's driving, and there's this other woman just honking the horn trying to merge in traffic. Just too tired to merge. So my wife actually made a contact with this person. She appeared to be Hispanic, and she was very upset, very loud, trying to merge. So after my wife taps her, so this lady who was trying to merge came immediately after, right behind. Like she caught up the car behind her. She came immediately after my wife. When they got to the red light, the lady came out her car. So this is like a road rage scenario. That's why I explained early in the morning, dropping off your kids can be very stressful. So this lady thinks she owned the road. She came out of the car and she came up to front to where my wife is, at the driver's seat. So she knocked down the window. My wife rolled down the window. So my wife tells me, also I have this also recorded on my dash cam video actually. So she was upset because she said that my wife won't let her merge. So my wife said, it's a crazy mess out there, right? You can't just wait. So she just got agitated. The next thing she comes out is, you stupid diseased Chinese bitch, right? Just out of nowhere. I'm like, yo, everyone's parents, we're all dropping off kids. Why you have to act like this? So out of nowhere, she threw this right in my wife's face. Normally, my wife, she grew up here. She's Korean. She's Korean, yet she's being mistaken for Chinese. She's being called a diseased Chinese bitch. My wife's not the type of girl who get pushed around. She grew up here. She's very street smart. As a matter of fact, usually people get intimidated by her. So, but this lady just went at her, calling her a diseased Chinese bitch. So my wife, she came out of the car and want to talk to her about it. Why you call me those names? So, without any provocations, nothing, this lady just sucker punched my wife, using a phone, right? She did that, and then my wife just started bleeding from her forehead. So she can't see. I think she said she's trying to grab onto her, attack her. They struggle a little bit, but she can't see. So she can't even exchange any fists, nothing like that. So I saw on a dash cam video that my wife was bleeding from her head, and then she was on a cell phone calling the cop. She said, she told me the moment that woman punched her and cracked her head open, I think she also saw her. She had the shock on her face, like, oh man, I'm in trouble. Right? So that's kind of everything kind of stopped, right? So when the police came from 109 precinct, so my wife told me on a 911 call, she explained that this briefly what happened. This woman called her diseased Chinese bitch, punched her with an object, and she's bleeding. So she's calling for 911, and then the cop showed up. She said it was two cops. It was two Hispanic cops. They showed up. She said they spoke to the assailant. Also, they spoke to one person, like one white lady on the street, right? This happened right now. Right? My wife has already spoken to at least 2 or 3 parents on the street, and she learned that this person have a history of anger issue on the street, like outside the school. So she has had problem with other parents before. There was also a crossing guard. So she haven't got a chance to talk to the crossing guard yet. On top, I got a dash cam. So the cop only spoke to one white lady, and my wife then told the cop what happened. My wife also, she speaks very well English, no problem. She's born here, grew up here, have no problem explaining. She also knows law. And so what's strange is that she never got a chance to fully explain what happened. She never got a chance to show the cops the dash cam videos. So she never got a chance. The cop never gave her any chance to do all this stuff. The next minute, she got cuffed. She got arrested, right? So she was in a lot of shock. So she said she doesn't understand why this happened. So cop basically tells her, "Oh, we put a cuff on you. It's procedure." Right? So she also saw the lady came, also got cuffed, and she was sent into a second ambulance. So she was taken to Flushing Hospital. in handcuffs and in feet shackles, right? For being a victim. Yeah. So she has to walk through the emergency room, through the hallway like that. And she told me like nurses were questioning why is she, you know, in this condition, you know? When she was getting stitched up, they asked, can you take the stuff off? And the cop refused to. Meanwhile, she didn't do anything, right? She didn't do anything. She never even got a chance to fight back because my wife wear glasses and she got very heavy degrees. So without glasses, she's like blind, no? So plus the blood. So she couldn't do anything. So yeah, she's in cuffs. So after she got stitched up, she went to 109. She doesn't know what happened to the other lady, assuming she also went through the whole process. She found out that she's also cuffed is because that lady claims she got a little cut on her finger. And because of that, the cops didn't want to investigate on the spot and talk to people, talk to my wife and do other work. They just decided to say, okay, there's a fight between two women, but there was no fight between two women, right? She was being attacked. Not to mention, freaking traffic violation, man. This person came out of a car, idling car at the traffic light, starting a road rage attack. On top, calling her this nasty, hateful term. So she got to 109. So thankfully, the bail reform, she didn't have to go to central booking or anything like that. But because of the bail reform, the cops kept on putting blame on the bail reform. So they basically explained to my wife, the reason why you're also cuffed, you're like this, is because the bail reform gave us a lot of work. We're overworked. So basically they're trying to say that they're taking the easy way out. They're giving us to the process. So what happens is that she got a desk appearance ticket and then she has to show up in court, lawyered up, but then she got to go to criminal court, right, to fight off a judgment, a charge she don't deserve because she's the victim here. But that's what happened that day, that she was basically a victim, but meanwhile she got unjustified, right, for all this and got into a worse situation, right? So what I did afterwards, I thought I had a lot of friends. I have a large network. I'm very outspoken out there. So I reach out to my people on social media. And very soon we did get a meeting set up with some outspoken leaderships, business people from Flushing. We had a sit-down meeting. But you know what? It didn't impress us. The two options given to us, I kind of know already, right? One is that we were referred to like Ming Kwang Center. We're also referred to like A Delft, right? Hoping to get a free lawyer. We don't have a pro bono lawyer to fight this case for us, But this is no longer a civil case. This is criminal case. So she has to be proven not guilty for the assault, right? Meanwhile, she didn't do anything. And then what happened?
Peter, yeah. Could I stop you here? And I wanted to actually talk about the distinction between the criminal and civil case and why your case was considered criminal. So, Steve, can you comment on that? Is this because of the way the police filed the case or something? And then maybe Chris Kwok, you could explain to us what is the difference between a civil case and a criminal case?
Well, one is definitely a criminal case because of the assault. There was an attack. The lady using her cell phone, the cell phone becomes the weapon and it becomes assault 2, which is a felony. If the lady claims that she also has an injury and Peter's wife didn't use a weapon, it would be a assault 3, which is a misdemeanor. But that would have been easily thrown out because as police officers, we're trained to see offensive wounds and defensive wounds. And it's obvious that the cut on her hand probably came from her using her cell phone to strike her, and she probably cut herself. Civilly, though, you could probably still sue her civilly for, hospital bills and stuff like that. But that's something I guess Chris could further clarify. Right, so it could be both.
Yeah, I mean, everything that happens theoretically can be both. So the best way to think about the difference between a criminal case and a civil case is the result. What happens at the end of those cases? In a criminal case, there is some type of judgment. Maybe there's jail if it's a serious offense. If there's not jail, there's some other thing on your record, a misdemeanor. But the criminal cases are not brought by individuals. They are investigated by the police. And then it goes to the DA, the district attorney, right? So every borough in our city has a different district attorney. And in this instance, of course, it would be the Queens district attorney deciding based on the investigation, made by the NYPD on the scene, what it's going to charge or not going to charge. And then you as an individual have a right to decide if you want to bring a case for civil damages, because a civil case, it ends in money. Right? That's the end result of a civil case. And a civil case is on you. It's on you to get a lawyer. It's on you to do it yourself. And so the criminal case is not a decision made by you. And it goes back to something we were talking to Sulene before. Mm-hmm. Like something happens to you, you report to the police do their investigation. Someone else is deciding how that case proceeds criminally or not you. You are there to help, give information that maybe they'll come back to you. But the criminal case is prosecuted by people you hire and paid for by your taxes in the district attorney's office. In the civil case, these are decisions you make on your own to pursue it or not.
Okay, so Peter, did you want to continue to talk about what was the end result, because it was a criminal case and you tried to get a lawyer, and what happened?
Sure, definitely. I mean, personally, I've been through a situation where I had to acquire a lawyer before, so I knew the process. But of course, in this case, that she was wrong, so we really don't have any intention of getting ourselves into this problem. So obviously, I'm not going to pay for my own lawyer to fight for something I didn't do. So I was looking for a pro bono. I was on social media. I threw up a message, hey, any of my lawyer friends want to do a pro bono case for me? In the meantime, I spoke to a bunch of people from Flushing Chamber of Commerce. They sat down with me because they know all the business people around the area. I hope that they can give me some leads. So we were given two options basically. One, we were referred to Ming Kwang Center. Along the way, also Asian American Defense and Education League Fund, hoping they can give us some leads on a pro bono lawyer. On the second option is basically through a rally, make it large enough, get news attention. So make it large enough, and hopefully the politicians, the leadership will come out and support you. And of course, I'm thinking, why can't it be the other way around? Why is it I have to make so much noise? Especially, I don't mind making a lot of noise. I personally, I love attention. My wife's different. I have to respect the victim, and so she has every right to not make it big, to make a rally out of it. So I'm thinking, why can't they approach? Plus, I know at the time I was on friendly basis with some of the leadership, so I thought they can come out and give me some support. Instead, I got nothing. So I'm being told that I have to make a rally and speak to all the reporters and make things big enough so hopefully to grab their attention so they can come and speak for me. So this is the second option. So basically from the second option, I can also trigger the attention of other people. Hopefully some people will jump on this and give me a pro bono case. So we didn't go for the second option. We didn't like it. We felt like we're not doing this for ourselves. We felt like we're doing this for publicity of other people, so we didn't like that. So we said, okay, let's go for the community group process. My wife also knew a few other activists, and they also recommended that we should check with AE Delft. So that's what we did. So she first reached out to Minh Quang Center, wrote them email, also called, left a message. She did the same thing for AE Delft. And so she told me that when Minh Quang Center never got back to her. So she I think she sent like two, three emails, called several times. They never got back to her. So at AE Delft, she did speak to the receptionist, but I don't know what happened. But she said there was like a miscommunication, misunderstanding on the phone. She's calling them for lawyer. Then they ended up arguing on the phone, and it just got so upsetting. So that I told her, what about your email? If your phone call can't get to the right people, what about email? So she said, yeah, supposedly their director responded back, but then she told me, basically told me that they have a lot of lawyers on hand to represent us in a civil case, but then they don't have any lawyer on hand to represent us in a criminal case in Queens. So basically they threw us back to Minh Quang Center. Minh Quang Center again, she called 2-3 times, and then I think at the time Ron Kim was running for re-election, so I think he was using up Minh Quang Center's resource at the time, so they're not calling us back. All right. So at this time, the people I know from like Chamber of Commerce, they said, oh, how about we throw a rally? I said, look, man, rally might be a good option for me, but again, my wife don't want to make this big. She had concoction for like a week, and the stitches, four stitches, it's really tough, So I said, how about recommend me a lawyer, man? I said, you guys are the commerce people in Flushing, don't you know any lawyer who want to do a pro bono case for me, maybe? So they reached out to the Bar Association, and they got us a recommendation. It was a white woman. She's a defense lawyer. I looked her up. I spoke to my friends at the time. I have a friend who used to be ADA in Queens County, so I can ask him if you know about this lady. He said, yeah, she's okay. But he also said, she's kind of like, she's the type of lawyer who like to just dismiss cases, At first, I said, okay, I think a lot of times they do want to dismiss cases easy, but I didn't realize, I didn't take this into context. So, but until we actually spoke to this lady, she basically refused to even mention race. We kept to tell her about disease Chinese bitch. We kept to tell her about this hateful elements that started everything. But then she refused to hear it. So she just responded back to us saying that she's going to find out this and that. But most likely we'll get this case dismissed, right? So thankfully, she's not that expensive. So we paid a very reasonable amount of money for this case.
Can I just?
So yes,
Yeah.
Chris, could you comment on this? Because
Yeah, I just want to make 2 quick points. Part of the problem is the delivery of legal services to working folk and regular folks is really bad. So, for example, the 2 institutions that that Peter has mentioned, ALDEF and Asian American Legal Defense and Education Fund, does not represent individual in cases. They do not provide individual services. For the entire existence, they have labored to explain what they do. What they do is they do impact litigation. So they're modeled on the NAACP Legal Defense and Education Fund. They go, back then, black kids can't access the education system, so they will bring a case for all black kids to make it impact, using one person, but it's not for them, it's for the class. And that's what ALDEF is built on the basis of. They do impact litigation. So kids are not getting schooled, workers at a restaurant are not getting paid, they're being forced to do religious. So that's what ALDEF has always done. So actually, half their job is explain to people when they call them, we don't do personal direct legal services. And that's part of a explanation problem and a communication problem. Minh Quang does offer direct legal services, but in very specific things like immigration, DACA. Part of it is that it's very expensive to have lawyers, and when they do, they want to hire lawyers that do very specific things that they feel they can, that they can provide legal services for. DACA, immigration, benefits, things like that, right? So they're not like the law is really complex, so they can't just be like a general law firm. And this is not by way of blaming Peter, but just to explain the difficulty in which individuals have in accessing legal services that is true and appropriate to their needs. Because particularly in immigrant areas, and I grew up in Flushing, so I say this as someone who sees Flushing as their sort of home, there's a lot of lawyers there, but a lot of them don't know anything. They don't have any expertise in anything. The only expertise they have is referring people out to other people. And that's a really bad skill system. Part of the reason is they come here to go to law school. They don't learn anything anywhere. Then they just pass the bar and they just hang up a shingle. I'm a lawyer. And then the last thing is that Peter's case, and Peter hasn't gotten to the point where it's been dismissed or they say they're not going to pursue it. It's a civil case, and it falls within personal injury because his wife has suffered an injury. Generally, there's money in it if a lawyer thinks there's money to be gotten out of it. They'll take a portion of it, so they won't take any money up front, right? So they can't pursue it criminally because that's the district attorney's decision by law to pursue a criminal case, because that ends up with you maybe having a record or in jail. At this point, Peter's, choice is to say, will I sue for damages? But here's the thing. Most people walking on the street in a street fight, they probably don't have a lot of money for you to go and sue them and then get it, right? Now, she got out of her car. Maybe they could have gotten after insurance, because that's where, insurance, once you bring cars and insurance in, that's where lawyers are like, maybe I can get some money. So that's just a little bit around it. And it's part that we do not have enough legal services that is appropriate, that can be explained to people, and that people can access in a way that's right for their problem. So.
And I was just wondering, in terms of Peter had some issues with how he thought the lawyer was handling the case. What can somebody do in that case if they feel their lawyer isn't using the right strategy?
That's why I'm so active in the Asian American bar. So I grew up here. I went to college. Pretty sophisticated people, right? But people, when they have problems in their life, they don't know which lawyer to call, and they only know one lawyer, and they're like, "I'll call you," but that person might not be the right lawyer. Most likely, they're not. And so that's why bar associations. Actually, Peter got to me. We were talking, and I couldn't help him because I think he had already hired the lawyer. But it's hard to figure out the problems because the law is very expensive, and the only people who can really use the law well is the people who can pay a lot of money for it, corporations and rich people. Everyone else, you have to have a big network of people that you can call and be like, what do I do, right? And Peter was very good in doing that. But I think Peter's frustration was in reaching an immigrant community that is still finding its way and getting resources and people and professional services to people who need it in the right way, that get people who are not going to exploit you, because lawyers can exploit you. And if you don't find the right one, and you should trust your gut. I think Peter had some experience with the law before, as well as having a good gut. If you don't feel comfortable and you don't think they're not explaining something to you, then you should go somewhere else. You should feel that they're explaining a thing to you, that that you trust them, and it's okay for it to be gut feeling. Yeah.
Thank you very much. You hit it right on the nail. Yeah.
So, Peter, did you want to finish up? Any other further comments?
Yeah. So, I've hired a lawyer in the past before for many different reasons, and a lot of time just the initial fee, it's a lot of money, and I've seen $300, $500 an hour. So this lawyer quoted us just one shot deal, $780. So I thought, wow, this is nearly free. So I thought this is really good. So I said, okay, fine. We couldn't get a pro bono, but we got this rate. It's great. But of course we told her that we kept on repeating to her that my wife had nothing to do with this, and we don't know why she got arrested for. And as far as I know, the cop didn't do their parts. So we hope she's listening. But meanwhile, she's got her other things going on. So when we finally met up for the first court date, which is a few weeks after this whole, a month and a half after this incident, because we actually got hit with one rescheduling because around this time, COVID has started and it has already made it into US. So things have already changed up a little bit. So when we finally got to court for the first day, so she was expecting the other lady also going to dismiss this case because we're thinking she doesn't want to get into the whole problem. But when we got to the court, we found out, this lady actually she thinks she's right, so she want to fight. So I said, okay, fine, we will fight for this, So now also my lawyer at the time, she was kind of disappointed. She thought this will be an easy peasy dismiss. We get this ACD dismissal and everybody walk home. But turns out the other side want to go for this. Also, we found out that this lady, we were expecting her to get like an assault 2, but she got assault 3, which is which exact same assault charge my wife received, assault 3. Which is wrong. We thought she got assault 2 because my wife never even touched her, but this lady hit my wife with the phone, with the object. So that's a lot heavier degree. Assault 3, we can get for max assault 3. Okay, assault 3 can get max 1 year prison sentence at Rikers. That's how assault 3 can get you. I know 2 can get you a lot more, but 3 is already enough a case. But my wife didn't do anything. And she has to go through this. It was a terrible ordeal. So but now, this lady, she don't want to give up. She want to fight. So okay, now we are giving a second court date. So now we went back to the scene. We talked to the witnesses. I spoke to the crossing guard. I got statements notarized. I got video recording. So I got a bunch of things. I know we're gonna get this lady in the criminal court. And who knows what's gonna go after that. So, but COVID started. We were given another rescheduling after another scheduling. So this whole rescheduling lasted for a whole year. And so finally, a year later, as expected, the court is very backed up. So Melinda Katz, Queens DA, decided to give us a dismissal. Of course, in their mentality, that they are doing us a favor, that this is dismissed. Now you're all free to go. Don't worry about it. Record will be erased like nothing ever happened. But, we as the victim, we went through so much and also so much time waiting on this to happen. And, all the anticipation and expectation now just down the drain. And of course, we spoke to our lawyer. Our lawyer said, yeah, congratulations. Your case got dismissed. And I'm like, what happened next? So, well, if you want to proceed further, you can go into the civil case and see if you can fight her, trying to litigate her personally. And, of course, at this point, it was a year later. We're well into COVID. A lot of things have changed. Not to mention in my own life, I have a lot of things to deal with, not just little kids. I have my own problems, this and that. So it gets really, really overwhelming. And, the question is, does the victim really want to go to a civil case? Of course, there's chances are we may not have to spend any money because this is a personal injury case. But, this is tremendous amount of time. Also, there's money. This is so unnecessary, especially for a victim who's trying to forget all this happened a year ago. Now we have to dig through and restart. Why can't we just did it right in the beginning, right? Why couldn't the cop who showed up, I don't mean to say there's some kind of bias, but, when the assailant is a Hispanic lady and the 2 cops showed up who's Latin, I'm just thinking there's some kind of a bias going on, right? Why this happen? Why do we have to be the one to suffer this injustification? We didn't ask for this, man. We wanted to be a good day, dropping off the kids, and this happens, So why can't we start nice from the beginning so the victim don't have to go through all this BS, and in the end, we walk away with nothing, but the system thinks they did you a favor, right?
Well, yeah. Thank you for sharing your story, Peter. It's really unfortunate that the pandemic actually intervened in this case. I'm not sure if Chris Kwok, if you want to make any comments about if we could maybe say what would have been the best case scenario if Peter had a chance to go to court with this as a criminal case, and whether or not he should consider filing a civil case now that it got dismissed because of the pandemic. Do you have any thoughts on this, Chris?
So without the criminal case being prosecuted, the civil case gets a lot weaker, right? And part of it is that for Peter, it happened relatively early in the pandemic, so people weren't thinking of it. I think the police are much more sensitive to it now because it became a political issue, because everyone was on TV talking about it, and once people got their ass beat on video and TV, like all of a sudden the cops are like, we care, we want to make this, we want, like became a real political thing. And all of those things would have happened differently if it happened after the video. Let's say of that lady on 43rd Street, the Filipino lady, because a lot of the way the police, and we want to talk about, sort of justice also, because it's not like lock everybody up, right? But where people are, and of course I believe every word Peter said. I mean, that's like effed up, just like two mothers dropping off and you get smacked in the face with the phone. You're like, that's road rage gone wrapped around the COVID-19, gone way too far. Maybe she doesn't need to go to jail for a year, but something should have happened to be like, that can't happen on the streets, dropping off your kids. That's not cool, especially with the anti-Chinese, anti-Asian rhetoric in there, right? Also, Katz didn't care. Katz did not care. She's like, you should thank me that I dismissed this against you. Well, it was wrong for you to be arrested because it was pretty obvious. That person's like, I got a little cut on my hand when I smashed her face. Her face hit my hand. Like literally, it's like, shut up and get in the police car, right? If that had been the right thing, right? But no, it's like, arrest that woman who's bleeding and can't see you. Yeah, we need to bring her in. Like, really? Right? Like the thing is, policing and prosecution is very political, okay? And no one gives a damn about Asians. That's just the truth, okay? That is changing. We're in the middle of changing it. But no one gives a damn unless we are politically active, unless we're politically engaged. We should be both those things in a fair way so that, we don't over-police and we don't go unfairly after people. But at the same time, we need to be protected in a way that's not just making things easy. That was lazy policing to just slam everybody in jail, right? Or get everyone arrested. And the politics and the pressing have changed. I mean, we can talk more about it because if you remember, because I'm glad that Peter talked about how she was charged with assault 3. Basically, anything that happens on the streets where people are not like killing each other, it's like assault 3. Okay, and they just like let it, it's like a misdemeanor. It's like a parking ticket. Do you guys remember the Flushing Bakery incident where the person pushed out a woman and she split her head open with 10 stitches right down here? 10 stitches. That was assault 3.
What? That's BS, man. Jeez.
But we changed it, and I will tell you how later. That was assault 3, but no one knew. And after the Queen's DA charged that, what is she doing? Running around to every single thing, going, "We got your back. There's no Asian hate. We care about you." You're like, and also like, you should report it. And here's Peter trying to report it. Right? Here's Peter trying to make a thing and no one cares. Why? Because it didn't matter quite yet. You were just a little bit too early. So people think that like policing is like this. It's bad. It's like that district attorneys is like, if it's a crime, you're in. No, there's so much gray area. And actually that goes back to something Sulaine said earlier. There's so much gray area. The law does not need to catch up with what's happening. We have all the laws. The DAs have the prosecution and have the discretion to decide how aggressively they go after an incident. Because, hey, we're in the middle of an anti-Asian pandemic and violence. Maybe we should take the worst case, take a bad case, and make an example so that we can tell people, you can't just lash out at people because they're Asian. You know what I mean? Like, you don't have to do that to everybody, but it might be good to have one case where you're like, I'm going to throw the book at you because we got to make an example to try to stop this right now, and that could have been Peter's case, but Katz didn't care. No one was pushing. We didn't know. It was too early. We were like all in the middle of trying to decide. And so, but we have to understand it's very political all the way through.
Yeah, I want to add to that. Chris is 1,000% correct.
Thank you, Chris.
My 16 years as a police officer, seen it happen throughout the whole career. Everything that we do and how we react is all political. The reason why they ignore us is because they feel like we don't vote, we don't count. We're not going to protest. We're not going to make any noise about it. And that kind of mentality needs to change. It's unfortunate that they are correct. We really, don't vote, come out as a community and vote. Unlike the Jewish community, they come out and vote. They donate to campaigns, they vote, they voice out, they will protest, they will riot, and they get stuff done. I've seen the Jewish community get taken care of so fast. It's ridiculous how unfair policing is, and it's kind of sad to see that what it's become, right, where it's controlled by politics and politicians. And if you want to be heard, you want to change that, then we need to speak out more. The whole I wasn't going to report it, but so and so convinced me. No, report it. Why not? It takes at least an hour, at most an hour of your time. You call 911, the cops will come to you, and you just do a report. You don't have to give. So when you do a report, here's the other thing with the bail reform. The perpetrator is given your information by the district attorney's office, right? Within 48 hours, I think, because they changed it where they have the right to face their accuser, right? So when you do the report, you're allowed to give just your first name and a phone number or a point of contact, right? You have to give a point of contact because, the district attorney has to reach out to you, the detective has to reach out to you, so you have to give a point of contact where they can reach out to you. So, what I would do is get maybe like a burner email or email that you use just for spam or whatever, and, sign up for email. Whenever you do it, God forbid you have to do a report, just give your name in that email. All right. If you give your full name and address, then the perpetrator will have your full name and address, which, puts you in further danger. I don't know what they were thinking when they thought of that, but, it is what it is. So please be careful when you're doing a report, right? Don't give, information that you don't want anybody to have. All right. So like your full address and all that stuff and your date of birth and all that, you don't have to give that. As a victim, you don't have to give that information. A lot of cops would be lazy and be like, hey, you have ID on you, let me see your ID. And then they just copy all the information down from your ID. You're allowed to say, I don't want to give you my ID. What information do you need? I'll provide it for you. Okay, what's your first name? My first name is so-and-so. What's your last name? I don't want to give my last name. Okay. What's your address? I don't want to give my address. Okay. I'll give you my email, my first name. That's what they need. That's what they need. They don't need, all that information. When it goes to court, you could give the DA, like, listen, I'll give you my first name and my email so you contact me, or Google number or something like that, and you contact me. But, I don't want the perpetrator to know where I live and stuff, so I'm not going to give you my address. I'm not going to give you my date of birth. And they'll understand. They understand. They even gave, when that first passed, the bail reform, the NYPD and the district attorney's office, they actually gave out like a memo, allowing cops to know, give that information out, let the victims know that this information will be known to the perpetrator within 48 hours, so forth and so on. They try to stop it, but they couldn't. But yes, so we need to be active, politically active, if you want to be heard. We need to voice our opinions. We need to come out and we need to speak up. If you want things to change, this is what needs to change. That whole mentality of keeping your head down, keeping silent, those days are over. They may have worked, in the past, but it doesn't work now. If you're silent, you don't get what you want.
Right. Thank you for that, Steve. At this point, I'd actually like to open it up to the audience. If anybody has any questions, please feel free to raise your hand or type something in the chat, and I'll be happy to relay that to the panelists or to unmute you. So,
before we get to the first
Chris.
question, if I just say one last thing.
Yes, please. Thank you, Chris.
So I totally agree with everything Steve said. And, there's back in California in 1854, when the Chinese started first coming to America in large numbers, there was a statute on the books that prohibited Native Americans, African Americans from testifying against white men in court. You could not testify against white men in court. There was a Chinese camp robbed by 2 white men. They killed the Chinese guy trying to stop him, shot him dead. And they found him guilty and they're going to hang him. And they were like, white man, you can't kill just people running around like this. Is terrible. He appealed it. He said, this statute, they meant to include Chinamen, Chinese people, right? Back then they were called Chinamen. And he appealed it. And the judge said, you are right. And he reversed his murder charge. He was going to hang, and they freed him. What that means was that the protection of the law that was not given to Native Americans, Black people, then they said, oh yeah, we meant Chinese people. We were not part of the law. We were not part of the civic society. White people could walk into a camp and gun every single Chinese person, and nothing would be done about it because the testimony of a Chinese person would not matter against that of a white man, because we were not invited, allowed to participate in civic society. We were not legal non-persons. That law was on the books for about 20 years, but I feel some of that legacy is within us in the way that the law sees non-white people. You're not human. You're not part of this society. You're not part of this law. So I think we're pressing and pushing against it to say, yes, we are. Yes, you must. Let's do it, right? So we have to fight against the legacy of that law. It's still here with us.
Thank you, Chris.
People versus Paul.
I see that Shirley Moy has a question. I'm going to unmute you, Shirley. Can you unmute yourself? I'm trying to unmute you. Shirley? Shirley, can you unmute yourself? Or maybe you can type your question in the chat. Okay, let me see. Shirley, if you have a question, you can unmute yourself, or you can type it in the chat. In the meantime, is there anyone else? Well, one thing that I wanted to perhaps think about is what about if you are out and about and you witness somebody else being attacked, or you see something happening to somebody. What should you do as a bystander, and what could you safely do? Steve, maybe you have some comments about that?
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so a couple of things. What to do if you are a, I don't want to say bystander, upstander.
Yes.
I want to believe that everybody's going to take action instead of just filming it for their social media, right? One, call 911. Number one, call 911. If you see an attack happening, you see something, illegal happening or somebody getting victimized, whatever, just call 911. That's number one. Two, make some noise. Bring awareness to the situation. Three, I do not recommend you, how do I say this?
Physically intervene, or?
Yeah, right. Aggressively, physically intervene. Because, if that happens, depending on the person, not everybody's the same. Some people will get hurt, and I don't want that to happen, right? So
intervene to the extent that you can do so safely.
Right.
Like take a video if you can't physically intervene. I actually think taking a video is the most important thing. ID the person, have a record of the assault or attack, and then I think your job is almost.
We can't hear you.
Your audio went out.
Chris, you're muted.
Oh yeah,
Chris?
sorry. Yeah, I just think that we don't want anyone to ever put themselves in danger unnecessarily. So, but intervene to the extent you can do so safely and take video.
Right.
Yeah.
So
One thing I would like to add, two organizations out there that are doing a great job with sessions like this. One is the Holla Back organization. The other one is the Center of Anti-Violence Education. We had a session with them this past week. This week, they're actually going to have 2 sessions. One's going to be available in Korean. The other one's going to be available in Mandarin. So if people are interested, sound out in the chat, and we'll make sure that information gets over to you.
Yeah. So the second thing is what to do if you are the victim. Okay, so do I recommend carrying around mace and weapons and stuff? Absolutely not. Mace is borderline illegal, right? Depending which kind of mace you have. So, some people are like, oh, it's better to be safe than, being arrested. Like, who cares? Worry about it later. No, because you bring further problems into the situation. Carrying pocket knives and stuff like that, I don't recommend. I think what was good to carry around is a flashlight, tactical flashlight. Some of the flashlight has those windows breaker bezels, right? Get some training on it. A flashlight is good because you could be at a distance, safe distance, and you could simply just, temporarily disorient the person by flashing the light into their eyes, and then you could run off. Right?
Steve, we had a question about whether pepper spray is the same as mace.
No, it's not the same. One is OC spray, one is pepper spray. Mace is like, some chemicals, and pepper spray is actually made from peppers.
Right, because you said mace is borderline illegal. So what
pepper spray also, because I seen people throughout my career get arrested for using pepper spray or mace and get charged with assault too, which is the felony, because the mace or the pepper spray becomes a weapon. So, carrying that around, I seen organizations give it out and stuff like that. I don't recommend it. One, as a police officer, I carry mace also on my belt. I used it maybe like twice in my career, and I never used it again. One, it doesn't work on everyone. Don't think it works on everyone. 2, it's very messy, meaning like when you spray it, if the wind blows it back at you, you're now blind also. 2, when the police officers show up, they're going to be pissed off because now they're going to have to handle this person, and this person's all covered in mace, and then they're going to get blind also and affected by it. 3, also, if the person has like asthma or something like that, they might catch an asthma attack and actually die on you. And you don't want to be responsible for that. Right? So I recommend a flashlight, tactical flashlight. You could flash the, temporarily blind them, and then you could make your exit and escape, or get to a safe distance and report them, so forth and so on. I really don't recommend attacking the person, right? Because you want to, a lot of people are saying, well, I'm defending myself. I shouldn't get arrested. Self-defense only goes to a certain line, right? So if somebody's attacking you and you stop the attack, that's self-defense. But once you overcome this person, let's say you're able to overcome this person, and now you got this person on the ground and you attacking him, right? Now you become an assailant, also, an attacker also. So you will be charged with assault also at that point.
Right. Thank you for that distinction. I think that's a very important one that people should be aware of. I see that, Steve, I'm sorry, did I interrupt you, or you're finished? No. Okay, so I see someone had actually asked about what happened. Maybe they wanted more details about what happened with the Flushing Bakery case. But before we do that, Selaine, did you want to say something?
Yeah, I think the tactical flashlight is a good idea, but what if it's daylight? A lot of these incidents are happening in broad daylight.
It still works. It still works.
Not necessarily going to throw them off as it would at nighttime.
No, it still works. If you get mine is 1400 lumens. If you flash that in the person's eye, even in daylight, it still works. It's like when somebody's taking your picture with the flash on, you still kind of blink a little bit. It still works.
Because when I was a kid, I used to carry around a long-handled umbrella just to.
That's fine too. So stuff like that, you could
or your rolling pin.
Well, yeah, or you carry your umbrella. You could carry your cane. You could carry your bat if you're going to play baseball later on. If you feel like you're going to play baseball later on, It's all about how you justify it. But if you walk around with a pocket knife and some mace, you can't say, "Oh yeah, I use this for work. I use this for that." You know, you're using it as a self-defense weapon, right? And it becomes a weapon. You know.
I know of at
But
least 2 Asian women who carry tasers. I won't, but they do.
that's illegal also. Tasers in New York City, that's illegal also.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, Chris, since you mentioned the Flushing Bakery incident, would you mind explaining a little bit more in detail? Someone in the chat had asked about what that incident was about. What happened?
Yeah. I'm going to invite Colin to also help tell the story. Before I get into that, I also just want to sort of clarify what a hate crime is. Hate crimes are enhancements, which means that in order for a hate crime to be charged, there needs to be an underlying crime that is committed. Harassment, assault. And then you are selected because of your race, color, national origin, then that becomes a hate crime and the punishment and the seriousness of that crime. That's what a hate crime is. It is not separate. It is an enhancement. And so here in Flushing, and Colin, I'll hand it off to you after I sort of set the scene. You know, you have an assault. Where the person pushes somebody, right? And if they're using a weapon, it becomes assault too. But here, she gets pushed into a metal newspaper stand. She gets 10 stitches on the head. And if that is a hate crime, that gets upgraded beyond what the assault 3 is, which is a misdemeanor. So it becomes the next level up in terms of the seriousness. It can become a low-level felony, and the punishments, potential punishments, are a longer prison sentence or more serious, sort of punishment. And so, Colin, I don't know if you want to take the story. Feel free to sort of tell.
Yeah, sure. So that case was actually pretty high profile because, they got social media's attention, Olivia Munn. So they were able to identify the attacker about like a day later. Right. So, there was a lot of celebration on the social media about, this guy, Patrick Mateo, was captured. But a lot of people didn't know that he was actually released a couple of days after he was captured. And the Queen's DA's excuse, Melinda Katz again, was that there was no evidence of a hate crime statement, right? Like Chris was saying, there needs to be some kind of statement, whether verbal or written, relating to, the victim's race, color, or origin. But thankfully, because of also, Chris's work and also the Asian American Bar, which I'm also part of, that the New York Times actually followed up with a story because, the Asian Bar report talked about how there's a lack of prosecution of hate crime, and they were wondering why, right? And part of the, main factor is that, a lot of police are not doing their job. A lot of district attorneys are not really prosecuting them, kind of being lenient, right? So in the New York Times statement, the attacker said, did admitted to a racial rant, saying, "Hey, you're in America, not China. Please give me space with coronavirus." So with this new statement, some of concerned citizens, including myself, my husband David, and also Chris Chan and Chris Kwok, we all kind of part of this little group that were very concerned, right, that there's no, the Queen's DA hasn't really done much, right? So the Bar Association, when some of us had meetings with them, say, hey, why is this case not being charged as, second degree upgraded to second degree assault with a hate crime enhancer, given the new evidence that was reported in New York Times, right? And they were still like, we're not sure if this is really a hate crime. Basically, we all have to kind of keep an eye out on the DAs, right? So we actually went to a lot of, these Hong Kong meetings, social media, webinars, where the DAs were appearing. We questioned them again, saying, why you guys haven't done anything with the Patrick Mateo's case? Why it hasn't been charged as hate crime when all the elements were there, right? There's the underlying crime, there's the anti-Asian racial slur, right? So we just have to keep pushing them. And we also thought about, potentially doing like a rally, and some of us have attended some rallies and put up big posters and distributed flyers to let people aware of these situations. So this goes back to what Stephen was saying, right? A lot of times we do have to, pressure our community leaders, some of our elected officials to also, asking them to pressure the DAs, right, to make sure our DAs are, protecting our community, especially in the case of Queens, right? Melinda Katz, the Queens DAs, she was very proud to say, hey, we started the first anti-hate crime unit in the country, right? But the truth is they haven't really done much, right? Same for Peter's case, right? They didn't do anything for your case, right? For Patrick Mateo's case, we kept pushing and pushing, right? And also, I personally have talked to Melinda Katz, Asian Advisory Committee, telling these people to tell Katz that, the community's watching. And we realized that she hasn't really done much, right, in terms of prosecuting hate crime. So thankfully, 2 months later, actually, this last Monday, right, the Queens DA finally upgraded the charge to aggravated assault in the second degree with a hate crime enhancer. But this is after a lot of work that we have done as a community, and several concerned citizens like us, right, have done something. So I really want to encourage all of you here to do similar things, right? You can adopt a case that you care about. Maybe you want to rally behind Peter, right, to see if there's more we can do about it, right? But we, if we don't do this, right, basically nobody's going to do it for us, right? We really have to either get the media exposure, right? In this case, we had the New York Times, right, who talked about, the lack of prosecution and, decided to interview the attacker and got the anti-hate crime statement, which really helped the case, because then the Queens DA, have new evidence that they can go after. We requested meetings with the DA's office to demand the upgrade of the charge, plus the enhancer. We attended several town halls where the DA was going to show up. We knew they were going to show up, and we basically kind of stalked them and challenged them right in front of the audience. Why they haven't done enough. We expressed concern to their allies, to their supporters, to the community leaders that endorsed them, say, hey, they need to do more, and they really need to stand up for community. And we also attended rallies where we have, posted a big poster of like Cats Don't Care. We passed it, 200 pieces of flyers at rallies about, where the case was going and why it hasn't been charged as hate crime. So that's kind of what happened behind the scene. That's, quite a lot. But I think, with a little bit more action from all of us, we hopefully will see more of these hate crime charges.
Great. Thank you very much. And I think that Chris Kwok made a very important point, is that it's all about timing. And unfortunately, it took like a lot of these incidents happening, and now we have like a momentum, and like people are really taking notice, and we have to create this narrative so that people understand like the nature of Asian hate crime. A lot of the other minority groups in this country have a much longer history and have established this narrative, but I think we're just getting started.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. And that's one of the things we need to do, is to tell our story. And, one of the things that, we've been doing is that, we don't think every single crime should be a hate crime, but we feel that when there is serious physical injury, 10 stitches to the head, that we need to do something about it. And there needs to be a message sent, particularly within these dangerous times. We also believe in other forms of dealing with hate crimes. If people don't suffer serious injury, or they're like high schoolers or junior high schoolers, we think restorative justice. And so we think all different types of ways of dealing with it are good, but it depends on the situation. And in this particular situation, we felt that it called for it. So that's why we went to bat for it. And as a community, we are maturing. What Peter needs and what Asian Americans deserve is a society and a city that is sensitive and that understands the needs and concerns of the people here. And we are beginning to get to a point as a community where we have enough time and resources and people with the time to press for that in a way that's being about an engaged citizen.
Yes, I see two questions here. One question is somebody that said about the question of whether or not you're an American citizen or not. There are some people around who are here on a work visa or a student visa or even a visitor visa, and they need to know that they can be protected as well. So I'm assuming this James, I believe, asked this question. I think that this question is if they are a target of harassment, can they be protected?
Yeah, no matter what your status is here, you have, it's kind of what I was talking about, People versus Hall from 1854. It used to be you didn't have the protection of the law if you were an Asian person, if you're a Chinese. We should be moving away from that, and that should no longer be the case. Just because you're here on a work visa doesn't mean you have less protection or less expectation of safety.
Yeah, absolutely. Your police officers don't ask about your immigration status. Everyone is protected once they're on this land. This is a sanctuary state, especially.
Okay. And I see another question. I'm going to have to read it. So someone said that if they went to the police precinct when they're intact instead of calling 911 because they knew that would be faster than calling 911, and then 2 weeks later the report was not in the system, and the person went to the precinct a second time, the police looked at them like they had three heads and requested that the criminal charge be changed from harassment to assault because the attack was from an object intentionally thrown at me, and then it resulted in a large painful bruise. Okay, so the fact that the NYPD kept telling me it was a harassment is infuriating. Yeah, so this person said they need to change it from harassment to assault.
Yeah. Going to the precinct in that instance, yeah, you can make a report going to the precinct. 2 weeks later, for it not to be in the system means that they never took the report. It takes about, at most, maybe 24 hours, 48 hours for it to be in the system, especially now when everything is done directly on the computer. Like if you get into a car accident, whatever is done directly on the computer or on the phone, and you get a report number right away. I would go back to the precinct and do the report and do it for reckless endangerment. It's not harassment.
Well, the person was trying to get it changed from harassment to assault, and
right. But did the person purposely point at you and say you and do this stuff and target you, or was the person just throwing stuff off, the balcony or roof or whatever, and it just so happened to hit you? So intention is the big factor here. So if there was no intention of hurting you, then it's reckless endangerment, because the person recklessly do something and unfortunately hit you. So that's reckless endangerment. It's definitely not harassment. If the person was cursing at you or whatever and then do the object, yeah, that's assault. So it's all about the details. Like I said, you have to be very careful with the details and mention all the details.
Okay, I see that Jolene has requested to ask a question. Could you unmute yourself, Jolene?
Yes, I'm ready. Thank you. I'm Jolene. I'm in Seattle, and people don't actually know about Stop Asian Hate here. I'm trying to bring some awareness. We did have the stabbing of the student a couple weeks ago. People still don't know. Some of the things I heard to do as a layperson like myself is to follow a case and put pressure on the DA. Who else can we put pressure on besides the DA? And
right. Anybody want to comment on that?
I would say your local politicians and the Attorney General's office.
Yeah, the DAs, we have identified the DAs, and they don't like to hear like we put pressure on them, because what they like to say is we apply the law, we're doing this right, it's not pressure. So I like to say we come out and tell them, educate them about Asian Americans where they might not know, because I think what people don't understand if they're not in that aspect of the law is that the DAs have a tremendous amount of discretion in what charges to press, what kind of level of investigation, what intensity to do it. Like, for example, okay, you don't have to have the chink word, you don't have to have the N word, you don't have to have all these words said in order to be a hate crime. You can say, hey, I got your MetroCard records, and you don't go to Chinatown, but you went to Chinatown that day that you stuck the knife in the guy's back. Why did you go to Chinatown? Were you looking for a Chinese person? So that's an investigation that the DA can choose to do if they believe that that person was selected because they were Asian. They're looking for an Asian person, right? And so, I mean, my advice, is, but as a non-lawyer, it's hard to press if you're not bringing those types of sort of relationships and knowledge. But the politicians then is the rest, to create a political pressure to say, this community feels unsafe. How do we make them safer? And policing and that district attorney is one aspect.
Thank you for that. My follow-up is, in the suburbs of Seattle, all these little municipalities, people do not know. I testified, I made a comment at one of the local ones and told them, hey, Stop Asian Hate is a thing. And I gave them 3 different scenarios that are not police issues, but when somebody drives at you at 4 inches, at your baby, it's not a police issue, but it is a thing. And so what are things that I can do to ask the police or educate the fire station, et cetera, because they don't know, and I'm just a citizen and there weren't any crimes. Is there anything that I can do to help educate? Because I'm willing, I'm just not sure how to be effective in that way.
I mean, Stop AAPI Hate and all the data they are collecting nationally, and most of that data is happening in California and New York,
Right.
But it's painting a national picture. And we didn't think of Atlanta until the shootings in Atlanta happened. 8 people dead, 6 of them Asian American women. And God forbid anything like that has happened in Seattle. Seattle actually has a really vibrant Asian American community. The International District down there has a great tradition of community activism. I don't think it should. I mean, I'm shocked that the city of that Seattle is not responding. Yeah.
No. And I interviewed a deputy mayor who's Chinese. Nothing's going on. And we do have a lot of Asian reporters, but we don't have the CFOMs or Dion Lims. And so I am just listening in the neighborhoods and trying to find the story so I can localize it to hey, this is happening. However, people are still not listening. And so,
there are many local. I know that there's a long tradition. Actually, Seattle had one of the first. I think had the first Chinese American state senator, state representative,
Governor Locke.
Yeah, Luke. Yeah, down in Seattle, the museum's named after him. There's a lot of Asian American electeds in state government there, and I think they can really be your allies to push that.
There are, but there's not a lot of movement. So I want more.
I'm shocked. I'm sad to hear that. You know what I mean? I'm really sad to hear that because it's got so many great people over the years.
It's true.
Yeah, I'm just shocked and sad, and I'm really sorry to hear it. Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe you need some rally or some kind of mass effort. Have there been any rallies or anything?
There's tiny rallies. There was 100 people for the student who was stabbed in our white picket fence, Bothell. Mm-hmm. He was stabbed, so there was maybe 50 people showed up. But the thing is, Seattle is, I think, 14% proper Asian. Mm-hmm. However, it's, we need the rest of everybody to pay attention. There's just a few of us. I'm not even an activist, but I have such a white community. I'm trying to get people to pay attention, and it's a struggle. So, so I'm listening.
This is one of those times. It's so unique. Conlin, her husband, David, myself had the pleasure of meeting a young man this weekend, Sam Chang, who's the son of the victim, from the Flushing attack. And there were points in time where he felt that, nothing was going to happen and this guy was going to get off. And what he didn't realize, because there's no way he could have, was that there were people in the community that were working towards exerting pressure on the DA, making sure that the case didn't just slip away. And visibly he was touched because at a certain point, they took the stand to prosecute the case and they felt like they were high and dry and maybe nothing would happen. And for us, anytime we can provide other community members support, even if it's just verbal, even if it's just a hug, it's okay. And it's great. It's appreciated. It's needed. But in this case, more was able to be done so that the case was actually prosecuted and actually had a positive result. But, Sam did this wonderful speech at the Day of Unity event downtown this weekend. And, he shared his perspectives, his thoughts in terms of how to be within the community, how to move things forward. He sent us a copy. We'll definitely make it available. But, an upstanding young man who, took a bad situation and realized for himself that, okay, what can I do about it? And then do it. and then let everyone else do whatever they're going to do, because we all have our own respective strengths, position, place, in our job, our work, our home. And just that little bit is so meaningful. Didn't mean to chime in, sorry.
Oh, no, thank you, Chris. I mean, and perhaps there could be more alliances with other groups, like if there's more larger groups in the West Coast in California or this or that, like maybe you could have some alliances with those groups and, try to get some support or some awareness that way.
I think that the challenge here in Seattle, in Chinatown, I've interviewed a number of the people in Chinatown, but there needs to be a bridge to the other 94%. So the Asian organizations are working so hard, but it doesn't make a difference hardly, because the rest of everybody doesn't care. And so that's what I'm trying to do. I'm rather confident, and I can go to these places, but I'm being ignored, which is weird for me, because I know, I'm in the white community. So it's that bridge that I'm trying to establish.
So you think the bridge with the non-Asian community also?
No, that's the most important. I mean,
Yes,
Asians
absolutely.
are doing as much as they can, but the white people and everybody else doesn't know. And a lot of Asians, are not, they're helping other Asians and are not outside of the community. And so I'm like, we're missing, 61% of white people who could do something. And so that is my charge, but I'm just.
Well, that's an important question that I've thought about, is how to engage with the non-Asian community.
This is actually like a really topical. A group that a number of us work with is called the Coalition of Asian Pacific Americans. It's in its 42nd annual festival. This year, instead of doing an outdoor festival, it was focused on creating an infrastructure or a framework for community organizations. I'm going to share it briefly just to get a look, but it's one of those things where, you need to sort of, any way we can reach out, get to know community members, but not just community members, but organizations, individuals to ally with, because there are so many community organizations that are not necessarily Asian American, Asian Pacific Islander that are out there, but a lot of these links and connections. So if you go into Beacons AI, AAPI Fest, you'll see like organizations that have come aboard, and basically these are the things that they're doing. A whole variety of interests, culture, backgrounds, whether it be in theater, whether it be talks like today's talk with Felicia, Korean American story, project by project, you name it. But each one of these groups has leadership within our communities that have connections within the different groups. There's Apollo, which is the Asian American Labor Organization. There's OCA. There's Asian Women's Giving Circle. And then if you go to the events listing, you can see different events. So, not all these events are completely livened yet, because I think we're all navigating, figuring out how to do virtual events. And as those details are available and as we have time, we're sort of populating all the information. But at least you can start to see, well, okay, there's a bullying event tomorrow. There's, a showing of Thornton Wilder's Our Turn, a reading by NATCO, a theater organization. There's Conversations on Justice on Thursday. But, these are things that we need to start sharing with each other so that we can sort of partake in it, find out who else is doing what, help them, and share that information so that we know what's going on and we have these active lines of communication. More importantly, also, you get a better sense of who's willing to work with other people. Because, together, can that make that much more? I mean, one individual alone can do wonders, but do it together, then we start getting a community going. So being able to reach out to Jolene in Seattle and find out, okay, what programs are going on there, who's doing what, and what do they need, what information would be helpful, from a law enforcement perspective, from a legal perspective, whatever it might be. But sorry, my 2 cents.
I think Steve wanted to say something. Steve?
Can I just drop one point before Steve coming in?
Yes,
I think
please.
Steve might also.
Yes.
Yeah. I just want to as we're talking about, if we can get, grabbing attention from the politicians. I just want to mention that it's very, very important for more Asians to come out and participate in local elections. A lot of us don't come out to support national elections, not to mention local national elections. I just want to say, in my case, I did actually finally receive. I reached out to Assemblyman Rung Kim at the time in Flushing. After my wife got arrested, he didn't get back to me until about 2 months, 3 months after this incident. So then I explained to him what happened, that the whole course, including me finding a lawyer, waiting for the date. So I mentioned to him that my wife was falsely arrested. She didn't even lay a hand on the person. And I wanted to find out, can we do something about this, I was shocked, man, because I see him on TV all the time, talking about defund police, come up with all these ideas. So I reached out to him trying to find out, is there anything we can do for this falsely arrested my wife?
Hi,
He said, oh, I'm sorry.
My
He said, hello?
Okay. Wait, did somebody interrupt there? Okay, I'm sorry, Peter, could you continue what you were saying? And we have a question after.
So he's like, oh, I'm sorry. The cop is a moron. And then he's like, but the cops, they're not paid to think, but they're paid to obey. That's what he said to me, right? So he said, okay, I'm sorry this happened, but it's a protocol, okay? I'm sure Melinda Katz knows what's right for your wife. So just go to, so basically he said, good luck. So I'm like, man, all this talk, shout, chanting, how good you can do it for the community. And this is all you can do. Let me follow protocol. And that's why I got to say, very, very important for all of us to participate, not just in national elections, but local elections, the small guys, because any small guys can one day become the president. That's my point.
Okay, thank you for that, Peter. We have a question from Ming Chang. Ming, would you like to speak?
I totally agree with a lot of the comments. Getting involved with mainstream organization is a good way to support a lot of Asian American events. From my own personal experience, I'm actively engaged with many of my local community non-Asian organizations, from Rotary Club, American Red Cross, Habitat for Humanity, chambers, you name it. So, and when you need to gather support to support a lot of these special Stop Asian Hate events, but I typically able to reach out across to many of these organizations to come and support. And as far as getting supporting more Asian American to run for elective office, and it's definitely something I support it, and I constantly supporting candidates. This Wednesday, we are going to do another event with Michelle Wu, who's running for Boston mayoral race. And for years, I have been supporting Andrew Yang locally. So I do urge everyone to get involved with pretty much any communities events, whether or not it's Asian, non-Asian, because at the end of the day, that when you need to rally support, that these are the people that you constantly engage with, going rallying around you to help you with some of your own events.
Thank you for sharing that. Yeah, it's so important for us to increase our visibility. And it takes time. It may be frustrating, but yeah, like as we know, when Chris was saying with Peter's case, it was so early, and timing is everything. It really affects what happens, the whole perception of things. Okay, so do we have any other questions? I think we're getting close to, we are at 9 o'clock right now, and I really hope that everybody has gotten something out of this, and that, or at least it's started a conversation or a dialogue in your mind of what you might be able to do. But we are really in an unprecedented time. I think there's been so much momentum, and we should continue to just look forward to what can be done and move everything forward. Oh, Jolene, I see that. Did you want to?
I just wanted to get just a last action items that everybody can do here. A small 1-2 action items. Thank you.
Okay, so you would like maybe the panelists to suggest some action items?
Yes, please.
Yes. Okay, thank you.
Actions as to what? When you're being attacked
What
physically
we
in the
can
street,
do.
or as in the whole movement itself?
I say anything that I think small acts that everybody on this call can do. Choose some, because I think, we can get all this information. It's great. And then we get busy, kids or whatever. So giving us 2 things we can do right now to just move forward.
Thank you, Jolene.
I actually have something which is I've been saying is social media has been very powerful in garnering attention and connecting people. So I think it's great that you have your Facebook pages, Jolene. I know also Instagram has been really powerful. That's how Felicia knew to connect with me, because I posted about the incident on Facebook. But I would also add this caveat to parents, which is, when your child comes forward and tells you about bullying incidents or harassment or violence, like, really create a space where you can listen to them and don't say, oh no, that couldn't happen. Or like, just really listen to your kids, because when something bad happens or when something serious happens and they really need your help, you want your kids to be able to come to you and tell you. You want them to be able to see you as a support. And sometimes I think, some parents they'll downplay it, or they'll be like, oh, it wasn't that bad. And I think it's really important to, start making these issues visible at home as well.
That's so true.
Yeah,
I want to. I just want to pick. Oh, wait, you go.
Go ahead, Peter.
Okay.
No, I just want to piggyback on what you said. Giving your kids a space, a chance to speak from their own shoes. Because now we're wrapping things up. I'm going back to how I started about Tourette syndrome. I'm a immigrant from China. I grew up here for 30 years. But when I first came here, when I was 10, 11 years old, I was assimilating, learning language. At the same time, I have Tourette's. I got twitches on my face. I make weird noises. I curse uncontrollably. I arrive assimilate all the place. So I was the freak of the school. Everybody saw me as a freak. Everybody don't like me. I had so much stress going to school every single day. And teacher couldn't help. The principal couldn't help. So my mom has always been I'm very lucky that my mom, she was always a fighter throughout her life. So she told me, you know what? If the teacher can help you, principal can help you, you got to help yourself. You got to use your fists. And that's what I did. I gave the biggest bully a black eye, and that was the loudest, biggest black guy ever. And ever since that incident, everybody gave me respect. They stopped bullying me. Also, I took myself to front of the podium. Since 8th grade, I presented myself in front of every class and talk about what's Tourette syndrome and talk about all these things. I don't want people to assume who I'm not. I want people to know who I am. That's why it's very, very important to give your kids the understanding, the space, and let him to speak about what he wants to talk about. And that is so important. And from there, and we can have a very good start and pushing ahead to a positive future. Thank you so much.
Okay, Steve, I think you wanted to say something. Steve, are you muted?
Oh, sorry. What can you do in regards to the anti-Asian hate or any type of hate that's going on right now? We're not the only ones being hated on right now, right? So use your social media platform. Whatever platform you have, use it. You may say, oh, I only have like 100 followers though, but it doesn't matter. One of those 100 followers may have 3,000 followers, and one of those 3,000 followers may have 10,000 followers, so forth and so on. So, use your platform to voice out.
Yeah. Tell your story. That's how we do it.
Right.
And as a lawyer who's active in Albany, I feel very lucky to have the ability to speak to certain people and to have other people speak to me that I can bring that message. But everyone else, like Sulaine and Peter, they are unique and special because they bring their story. They've shared it with you. And the power of that is connecting with others you didn't think would connect with you, and that you would teach them about something, and then you create something better out of it. So that's extremely powerful, the power of sharing your story. I just want to share one more story. I'm an immigrant from China myself. I grew up here. And when I was in high school in 1989, 1990, I forget which year it was, there was 5 of us. We went to see a movie in Bayside. You guys know that the shopping center. Now, this was before the renovation. So where Victoria's Secrets was, there was a movie theater, standalone screen. And 5 Asian kids went to see a movie. I didn't go. I was supposed to, but I had church, so I went to church. But when they went into the theater, a gang that's very active in Bayside, even today I hear, back then it was called the Master Race. You can see their tags all around Bayside. So it was a bunch of white supremacists. They said, there's 5 Asian kids enjoying themselves at the movies. Let's beat the shit out of them. So when they came out of the movie theater, there was like 20 white kids with like beer bottles and sticks. And they went to town on the Asian kids. Now, what they didn't know was like 4 out of the 5 of those Asian kids were like black belt Taekwondo. So it was like a real good fight, a really good one, right? But that was like 1989, 1990. It happened. And then it just like, we put it out of our minds. We didn't even think to make a big deal out of it. We didn't even think that we needed to say something. I didn't even think about it for 30 years until now. And now I'm like, you know what? That was messed up. We got to remember that was in Bayside in 1990. We can't forget that. You know what I mean? But it's like it didn't exist. I talked to my friends who were the actual subjects of that attack. And I said, yo, we got to talk about it now. We haven't talked about it for 30 years. It's like a Stephen King novel or something. I'm like, can you talk about it? Just because we should remember it. We shouldn't be like it never happened, right? But they're like, oh, I don't want to. That's history, man. I don't want to bring it up. And so even though I was in the subject of the attack, I'm going to keep at them because they need to talk about it so that we can, share our story so we can keep that alive and make our society for our kids better than what it is that we found.
Thank you, Chris. One thing that comes to mind for me is actually, I know that we need to be out there and tell people about what's happening with Asian hate and all that, but I think it's also, I forget who it was, maybe Steve or Chris said something like that, but that this is a hate issue and that maybe we need to be reaching out and making alliances with other groups, whether it's like the Black or Brown communities or whatever, and supporting them. And like, because this is just a hate issue, like it's a human issue.
It's all the same. It's all the same.
Exactly.
The law that I cited was meant for Native Americans, Black people, anyone that was non-white that they didn't want part of their society. And then Asians were thrown into that basket. So we can talk about unity, but we can also understand why that's needed. And that was one way of talking about, hey, if you go and you look at the history of these laws and these struggles, they kind of are all the same. And that there is a reason why we should all fight against that together.
Mm-hmm. I'm not sure if that answers your question, Jolene, but we think we all need to like reach out to other communities and have some more unity and have mutual support and understanding, not just to ask people to support us, but maybe we can cross the line and be involved with other groups as well.
Also, Felicia, I'd like to,
yes,
one more thing. I think it's so important because everyone assembled here, we're not just in it because of one incident, right?
Mm-hmm.
We're in it, like, it's so important, I think, self-care right now to it sounds so small, but to take a yoga class or meditate or do deep breathing, because I know for me, sustainability is really key.
Mm-hmm.
This is not something that I'm just going to do for 5 minutes today. It's something I think about every day, how to keep people safe, how to help them. And I think that, I think anything we could do for self-care right now, especially Peter, you and your wife, I hope you guys did something really good for yourselves, because there's a lot of hate out there. And there's a lot of ugliness. So any way that we can repair ourselves and get ready for tomorrow and the next day after that, I think is critical.
Yes, because we need to sustain, and yeah, even though we want to have our stories told, like we need to take care of ourselves. But yeah, it's just important. It's like step by step, because, you know, like Sulan, you said, telling your story, you had some people come out and tell you what happened to them just because you came out and told your story. And so, Jolene, I believe that you, by you doing that, like hopefully you will inspire other people.
Two things I want to mention.
Oh, sorry, Chris.
There's a wonderful group by the name of Asian Mental Health Collective. I just shared the link. They have a ton of resources, panel discussions, therapy contacts within different states. They're also in Canada. I highly, highly recommend it. They also have community within their groups so that people can, connect with groups or read blogs about individuals that have gone through and figured out for themselves what was helpful. Especially after the past year that we've all had, going on to an open environment like that, seeing what they have available and jumping in wherever you feel ready is absolutely wonderful. They organize their information very, very well, very, very effectively. At the end of this month, we're planning on getting a panel discussion with a lot of the mental health, therapists and programs that are in our area, so that they can learn from each other, collaborate with each other, and start whatever initiatives make sense to. So I definitely want to make a plug for that. The other one I definitely want to also point out to everybody, we have one member here, Angel Colon. I don't know if I said your last name, but I've been seeing him on any number of different talks throughout the months, and he is a student counselor over at Stuyvesant High School downtown. Angel, thank you so much for being so proactive in terms of finding information about programs in the community, and then passing it on to the younger generation. When they hear it from you or within the school, it's different from when they hear it from a parent or a community member. So, thank you, and, continue doing the great work that you're doing. You're very proactive, and, it doesn't go unnoticed.
And I thank you, Chris. And again, I thank this panel, and as well as the other Chris Kwok, who again came to our school. He was one of many that we also had an AAPI forum. And, to the community here and hearing all your narratives and your stories, again, very inspirational. And, the thing that if we all, like Salifa, tonight, is that, again, we all have commonalities. Every community has gone through a lot of this from the past to the current present. And this is why, again, it's more important than ever for all our voices to be united, to be in solidarity, and to really, really, take this on. Again, one group cannot do it by themselves. This takes a coalition. We're all family. We're all brothers and sisters. And, again, anything that I can help as I'm getting to meet some of you guys, and I'm coming to a lot of these panels, and I'm also bringing, I took a lot of great notes. I took a lot of resources. Again, this is stuff that I'm bringing to my community, not just in my school, but also my networks through the Department of Education and through other platforms that I have. And I'll definitely, like I said, do my best to make it to the 29 event. So Sergeant Lee, I look forward to your event. And anything that I can do, guys, please reach out. And again, what can I say? Love, solidarity, and I hope that, like I said, we all get this as best we can.
Okay.
Thank you, Angel.
Jolene.
I took a note of
Angel.
Okay. Great. Thank you.
Angel when he came out. I thought this is an interesting guy. He's a down-to-earth, interesting guy, man. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Angel. Thank you, Peter. I think Jolene had a
Yes. Thank you, Angel. I'd like to connect with you. I'm meeting a number of educational folks, and I wanted to speak to unity. Sulaine was talking about unity, and I think an easy spot to go to are the schools and the colleges. I interviewed 16 and 17-year-old Asians, and one of the girls is Black and Korean, and how perfect. She's the vice president of Black Student Union at her high school, and then she started an Asian Club. I've interviewed 2 panels of 16 to 17-year-olds talking about their life as an Asian and how bullying affects them, etc. And I think it starts, a great place is in high schools, getting people to start these clubs, and then in colleges, because all the affinity groups, the Korean group, the BSU, and starting there, because I think they are, I'm 47, but like these kids are kind of grew up with diversity. So I think starting there is an easy place. And there's a number I would like to connect with. And also there is a participant on the line, Lee Uehara, who I interviewed, and she and another person, parents, put together how to do PTA, how to do a fireside chat with the Asian Americans at the school, and how to do that, to have this place where Asians can talk with each other. And then I'm talking to another teacher as well. So there's a number of things that people are already doing. So let's share these resources. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much. Okay. At this point, we are at 9:16, so I think that we're gonna get ready to wrap up. I think that we'll try to. I hope that I can record the chat, because I think there are a lot of really good resources being shared in the chat, and if we can somehow collect that, we will email the participants in this meeting today, so that you can have some of those resources and follow up with you. And I wanted to thank everybody here, the panelists, and everybody who participated, for taking time out of their Monday to be here. I certainly hope that this has helped you, or that at least it's put some thoughts in your mind about what you can do with the Asian hate. Peter, did you want to say something?
That's not correct. That's not correct. Yeah.
Okay, great. Well, thank you very much, everybody. Check out the Asian Pacific American Heritage Special for more events, and have a good night. Be safe. Take care. We'll see you soon. Bye, everybody.
Thank you. Good night.